Hey, what's going on YouTube? I know that I said I was going to have family in town. I wasn't going to be putting out any videos or stuff this week because I wasn't going to be able to get into my studio. But here I am. Family did not end up coming into town, and I had some time to work on this video that I've been wanting to put out for about a week or so. And so here it is. Wanted to go ahead and throw out there and give credit where credit is due. The idea for this video and the discussion that kind of follows came from one of my YouTube subscribers and someone that I know in the FFBE Global Facebook group, who I'm just going to call Inuj, just because I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce your name. But, thank you so much for giving me the idea and the inspiration for talking about this. And I hope that this is helpful to you, and it's helpful to us as a community and enjoyable for people who watch this video. So one thing I wanted to throw out as a disclaimer: this is probably going to be a longer video, so I am going to have some thumbnails and timestamps for the various parts of this video in case you want to jump around to the different sections, because there is going to be some discussion, and it's going to be not a whole lot visually on the screen, some words and some feedback from people and some discussion and things like that. So if you're looking for a specific part, check out the description of the video, because you're going to see the timestamps there, and that's going to be really helpful. So what I wanted to get into here, Inuj and I were having a conversation about, Clash of Wills and kind of like what we would like to see different in future Clash of Wills, and some like, want to see this unit or want to see that unit or want to see this change or that change. And I thought, what might be useful to open this discussion up to more people. And so I made a kind of like a quick poll on the FFBE Global Facebook group, where I got some feedback from some people, and I've been having some more conversations with other people, and just wanted to share some of what kind of came out of that discussion. So this comes from the fact that we've now been through 3 full seasons of Clash of Wills, or what I'm just going to go ahead and call COW. And I wanted to share some opinions and feedback about my own experience, as well as the feedback from others who've taken part in the discussion that we're going to have. And this is going to center around a handful of topics, and I'm going to go ahead and pop those up. So we're going to be looking at people's opinions, my own included, of the difficulty of Clash of Wills, and whether or not that is relevant and fair compared to the rewards you get. Kind of some discussion on some of the bosses. A section that I was really interested in was getting external help on Clash of Wills, and then maybe some changes that we would like to see in the game. So I doubt that this is going to be true for anybody, but I want to go ahead and throw out there, if you are brand new to the game or new to Clash of Wills in general and don't know what it is, here's what it is. So it's an end game competitive event where your maximum possible score depends on you being able to survive the boss's attacks while doing maximum damage required to get a perfect score. That's only if you want to like perfect clear and get like the best score possible, but it is a competitive event, so you should be pushing for a high score. You can make that score or the event harder and get a higher score by adding modifiers to your score that increase the boss's stats, make you weaker to attacks, lock the boss's HP at 50%, etc. Doing this increases your score, and if you can complete the event with all modifiers turned on and get a perfect damage score, you're going to share rank 1 with any players who are also able to do the same thing. There have been exceptions to that, where like some events were not possible to be perfect scored, but in that instance there were still a shared rank 1 among players who could reach a certain threshold. So it's shareable. It's competitive, but also collaborative, because you can share your results and you can share your strategy and get those rewards, assuming you have the EX levels on the unit. So like the bringing certain units at certain tiers of like EX levels, right? So the fully awakening them is what's required to unlock those score modifiers. So each mod has a high score, an EX level cost, and so like you have to be able to bring certain amount of EX levels. Currently that is set at 16 EX levels to unlock all the modifiers to get a perfect score. So even if you're not going for a high score, simply clearing levels 1 through 99 gets you a lot of rewards. Those rewards are really valuable to free-to-play players. I've heard less valuable to players who are not free-to-play, just because you are pulling more anyway, and so you don't really need more tickets. If you're going to pull with Lapis, it is what it is. And clearing this boss without the modifiers on can still be a challenge depending on what units you have access to in your roster. So it's a really fun event. I think it's really customizable. You can kind of choose your own adventure as far as how hard you want to make it. And I think it's really creative. And I think it was intended to be really creative. And I think it started out being really creative, but over time has become less creative and kind of less interesting. But I don't want to go too far into that yet. Definitely want to stick around for the end before we get to that part. But I'll go ahead and throw that out there. I think that the event started out really, really awesome and has gotten a little more lackluster. But there's a lot that goes into that, as we're going to see. So let's talk about it. Clash of Wills, in terms of difficulty, it is end game content, and the bosses are basically as hard as some of the trials that we have access to in the game. And generally speaking, each event is going to come with a unit that's going to make that boss easier to fight. Sometimes even making it negligible, like not even worth trying, because if you had the unit at a certain EX level, you're going to get a perfect score no matter what. The example I have of this is Sky. At EX +2, when her event was current, you were guaranteed rank 1 as long as you had a team of EX levels that could support her and help her get that damage. She was going to do it by herself. I did. If I could do it, anybody could do it. As long as you had Sky EX +2, there it was. Now, the contrast to that, because they're not all like that, the most recent event, having Roberta and Ignitos, certainly helps you to do damage, but it does very little to help you survive the boss's unresistible, uncoverable, unpredictable chromatic wave attacks. And so sometimes having that unit makes it really easy. Like Maeve was an example of a time where it made it fairly easy. Esther was an example of a time where it made the boss completely brainless, and you could just go in there and destroy it very easily. But other times it's not like that. So what do the players think about this? And so I've got some comments that I got from other players who are taking part in this. Some people said, it was easier, or it's been easier lately, somewhat less so for some fights, but easier is probably good for the community as a whole, which I really like that feedback. This one says, probably easier because I can reach level 80 without too much effort, and then I never really try it any earlier though. Okay, I prefer it harder. This fight is more interesting. I like that idea. Like sometimes it's harder because it's interesting because it's harder. This one says harder if you're unlucky. Is it fun? I'm not so sure unless you're talking about the boss's face for the April Fool's joke. I love that. Is it harder? Probably if you're unlucky, and maybe not so much fun. Okay. This one says, I just can't handle the damage that's uncoverable. Even strong mitigations don't do anything, and after a few runs of trying new stuff, I just stopped. That I don't love. I don't love that kind of feedback, because I get that, if you're not able to figure it out and you just quit, that's one thing. But I think that there are some parts of this that made it was like, if you didn't have the right units, some players are just giving up on the event altogether, which is not, I think, what they want players to do. Okay. So what do I think? That's player feedback. So what is some of my feedback? I think that the difficulty is on par with Trials, and so it's more interesting than Dark Visions, because in Dark Visions you just take no damage and then hit the boss as hard as you can, which I find really, really boring. But I think part of what makes Clash of Wills and Trials hard is the inclusion of what I call rule-breaking mechanics. So, for example, right now, we have access to 4 different tanks that work with morale and have morale mechanics for Clash of Wills. We've got Maeve, we've got Chow, we've got Bohemi, and we've got Esther. And to compensate for us having 4 options now, to make that interesting, the bosses just have skills that are going to bypass your tank completely. It's like almost defeating the purpose of having the tank. It's like, okay, here's your tanks. Here's the tanks that are going to help you survive Clash of Wills this time. And then in future Clash of Wills, who needs a tank? We're just going to bypass all of your cover. We're going to bypass all your provoke. We're going to bypass all your elemental resistance. No. And I get that they have to challenge us, but it's like they give you the tools and then they take the tools away. I think that's not a whole lot of fun, because then it's like, where's the fun in pulling for a really strong tank if you can't use your tank anymore? You could argue that simply encourages you to have a diverse arsenal of units and strategies rather than using the same team all the time. But if you are like me and can't pull for every unit, or don't get lucky enough to have the one unit you need to survive or do damage, you just have to settle for a lower score. And that's maybe, I think, the point of the game. Like, if you're not willing to settle, go pull more stronger units, which is a good thing you can do if you've got access to actually go for a unit. Like, if you need a really strong tank, but there's no banners that give a strong tank, you're just out of luck. You got to hopefully get one as you pull for something else. There's that. My other opinion on this is that I find that this particular game mode really punishes trial and error rather than rewarding it. I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of what I mean. In order to play, you spend an orb, and that orb is very limited. You only have 10 of them at maximum until they recharge, and they take a long time to recharge. You're either going to spend 10 hours waiting to get them all back, because it's 1 orb per hour, or spend 100 lapis. And the difficulty of these bosses is so fine-tuned and so difficult that if you don't know what you're doing going into it, by like watching a guide or reading information somewhere, or like just like getting lucky, you're going to waste all 10 of your orbs just trying to figure it out. And then you got to sit there and do nothing for 10 hours, or at least 1 hour waiting for your orb to come back. And even a well-built team that's kind of generally ready for all kinds of stuff is just going to get totally overwhelmed and wiped out by the boss if you're not prepared. So the problem with that is the game lacks the necessary detail to really prepare your team. Like, we get some news updates, right? We get, okay, it's going to do lightning and ice damage, and you have to be ready for, dragon and aquan. And that's all the information we really got in the news update for Clash of Wills. And obviously they don't want to like give away the game. They don't want to tell you, oh, you need to have 300% resistance to ice and lightning. You don't want to have that, but it would be nice to know like a little more information. And what I mean by a little more information, it would be like, this boss does like 15 attacks per turn. It'd be nice to know what those attacks were instead of them rapid firing, so fast that you can't even read what they're doing, let alone determine what's happening to you. Sometimes you might even miss the names of it if you're not used to it. By the time I got to the end of the most recent Clash of Wills, I was pretty much able to read it as it was going and knew what was happening, but it can be really hard to tell. And if a boss kills you so fast that you can't even tell what's happening, you're not going to be able to figure it out, especially since the game doesn't tell you anything about the boss as you're going. So there's kind of my opinion on the difficulty of it is. I think it is really difficult, but I think that it's supposed to be difficult, and I think it's fun that it's difficult. I just think it could be tuned a little bit better. Having more information, or not having it punish so hard for trial and error. So let's move on though. I want to talk about rewards. So like I mentioned before, that there are good rewards. You get completion rewards for every level of the content cleared from 1 to 99, and that's going to include things like tickets and lapis, obnixus shards, which you use to buy event rewards from this current season of Clash of Wills, and xenostone shards, which you use to craft the event gear. And if you just go from 1 to 99, you're going to get all those rewards. But we also get ranked rewards, and the ranked rewards are going to be given to you based on how well you perform. If you can perfect score the final level with all the mods turned on, you get all the rewards for the entire event, and you share those with anybody else who got rank 1. So some argue that the rewards are not as good as the rewards for Dark Visions or World of Visions, or worth the effort. Despite the fact that with the right team, there is no effort. You just go in and you perfect score it, and there's no problem. The craftable gear, though, in contrast, is extremely valuable, especially for new players, if you can craft it. And so you at a bare minimum, you kind of want to get to at least level 89 so you can get all the xenostone shard drops, so that you can craft the item that you need for how good it is. And some of those items are considered best in slot for some units, based on the role that they're filling. So it's very good craftable gear. And recently, this was really cool, the purchasable rewards you could get with obnixus shards included free NV units that were relatively useful for morale fights, as well as time-limited materia and random rewards like tickets and things like that. So there were some really good things you could buy. But in the name of the discussion, I wanted to ask some players what they thought about the rewards as well. And here's what we got. One person said it would be be a lot better if they added lapis for rank rewards. And then they backtracked and said, you know what, if they did that, though, they'd probably make it harder and not able to share rank 1. So never mind, don't do that. Was the feedback that they gave after they said that. One person said it would be really cool if units and other drop or they said the units and the drop rewards seem very good. It makes sense to include the supporty Clash of Wills units, as those units have a long shelf life. And what they're talking about how in the most recent season of Clash of Wills, you could get units that had morale skills like Bohemi. One time we had Ling. They had like Kresnik and Bulwark and people like that were really good for Clash of Wills in general. And so it was nice to have those there, is what they're talking about. One person said, I can never get enough shards to get the units or the upgrades until the next one. And this happens if you can't get all the way through and get all the obnixus shards or the xenostone shards. Like if you just don't have enough to craft the best item until the next season, you're going to be delayed getting it. It's just the way it is. And that happens if you can't clear the event. But the good news is you always get more xenostone later. The xenostone is used for everything, so it's just a matter of time. This one says, free units are free units. I'm never going to complain. Good. Absolutely right. This one says, premium limited units could be good, but that's never going to happen. I agree. Probably never going to happen. This one says, overall, the prizes are good. The NB units are usually very good. I love it. And this one says, as long as they're new Neovisions for me, it's very helpful for getting units that I don't own, which I agree with. I picked up a Kresnik off of the last one to get mine to EX +2, and I really enjoyed having those units there because I don't have a Kresnik. I would love it if we could get some Louise in there. That'd be nice. So what do I think about the rewards? Frankly, I love them. As somebody who does not spend a lot to try and buy Lapis in the game and do a ton of pulling as a result, I love getting tickets. I love getting the Lapis rewards. I love getting the 1 out of 10 Neovision guaranteed tickets. I love the Xenostone. I love being able to craft the items and pick purchasable rewards. It's my favorite part of doing that and getting the rewards done, is just being able to use everything that you get afterwards. I have no complaints about the rewards. I just wish that the units that they put in the shop would be relevant to that season's bosses. Not overpowering. Like, obviously I don't want you to put units in there that are going to like make the event worthless to do or easy to do, but ones that are going to provide some help for players who don't have every unit in the game just to complete levels 1 through 99. And you might argue that's really hard because maybe they don't have all the bosses fully figured out for that season, but I would be willing to bet that they have some idea of what the bosses are going to do and what kinds of units are going to be helpful for those bosses already for the next season. For the next 3 bosses, they probably have that to some degree figured out, like, oh, this would be good or this would be good. And it would be cool if they just put those units in there just so that you could, even if you can't perfect score it yet, you're like, oh, but if I had that unit that's in the shop, I could use my shards to go grab it and then get a better score. Maybe it'd be a little easier. And I think that would be nice. But again, I think that might probably not be doable because they don't want to make the event too easy. So I respect that. And there's my feedback on rewards. I think the rewards are great. Let's talk about bosses. That's the next section here. So far there have been 9 different bosses, and some have been easier than others, and some have been downright abusive and oppressive, mainly Kairos and Aldiba. But what do the players think? My favorite boss was the Nyan Beast. I love its design. I agree. The egg boss was lame. I don't know why you think the egg boss was lame. You didn't go into a whole lot of detail on that one, but okay. I don't like or dislike any of the bosses. They are far too complicated, in my opinion. I think that's a fair assessment. These bosses are really complicated. Well, some of them are really complicated. This one says, I think the AI of the bosses can be improved. More triggers and less randomness. Thank you. That's my feedback as well. They need less elemental weaknesses and more different ways to clear them instead of forcing you to choose one element. I would love that. I like that bosses have a weakness, but I feel like we should be able to be more flexible. It'd be really cool to see some boss sometime that you could use whatever team you wanted. That'd be neat. I love the Derp Dragon. It's adorable in my opinion. I think more Clash of Wills bosses should have googly eyes. Yes, I agree. That would be a lot of fun. It was very funny the first day we logged in and saw that. This one says, I don't remember which ones I like since I'm not aiming for the highest rank. That's a fair point. If you're just going in and clearing it and getting it done and you don't really care, like, that's fair. So, what do I think? In spite of my complaints, and you're going to hear some of my complaints later, I think that Clash of Wills is probably my favorite content in the game. It's engaging, it's difficult, it's challenging, it's interesting. We can customize it. It's been some of my favorite stuff to create as far as videos go. My favorite bosses have been the Nyan Beast, the Exterminator, and Osta, the Undead Dragon, because that one was my favorite just because I was able to clear rank 1 or get a rank 1 clear on it. So that was really fun. My least favorite though have been Kairos and Alduba. There's been for both of those, there was just too much RNG on top of their incredibly oppressive move set. And so even from my experience, even at lower levels or without the mods turned on, they were just like wiping me out. And they both required really specific units to even participate at high levels. And without them, you were just out of luck. My experience of like the comments that I see on Facebook are that many players just did not even try to do those bosses because their design and reliance on specific units. Others persisted and put up with the absurdity, which you probably saw in one of my videos where I hit 8 chromatic waves on turn 1 after they supposedly fixed it. That's a lot. That's a lot, and it's not fun. And like even with all the right stuff, 8 would probably kill most players. Overall, though, I really love the bosses. I think the sprites are really cool. I love the way the sprites get more and more like spirity and fiery and evil looking as they get higher up in the difficulties. My favorite example of that was the Undead Castle one, what was it called? Mortarim. I loved the way Mortarim's sprite changed and got like bigger and nastier and evil looking as it got harder, which was, I thought that was just really cool. So overall, I think the bosses are really neat. I would love to have like backstory on them. I know you can do Libra on them, but I would love to get some backstory on like where these bosses are coming from or some understanding of what's happening. I think that'd be really cool just to include some of that. Like some degree of like when Dark Visions first started, there was always a little cutscene that happened for each one. It would be neat to have a little cutscene or something like that. That'd be cool. External help. Let's talk about external help. And I think that this is going to be a topic that most people are going to be surprised by my opinion on. And the reason for that is like, I'm just kind of like in the past year, kind of getting it started, like making videos and making some guides, making some content for like helping new players at the game. And I find that a lot of players, especially in this last Clash of Wills, a lot of players feeling that they're unable to figure out the boss's AI or develop a strategy for themselves, they turn to people to create guides. They turn to creators, a specific handful of creators to make guides for them. And even people like me, I'd put out a video just kind of demonstrating my process, like, oh, here's kind of like how I figured it out. Here's how I'm working on. And people would say, oh, I want to do that too. Can I switch this out and use this and this and this instead? It's like, well, there's a lot of questions about that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. And I'm not getting rank 1 scores and people are asking me for feedback and can you do one person asked me, and I wish I could have done this. One person asked me to make a specific clear with Louise and somebody else, like Louise and Machina or something like that, just to like do something different because I had it, and I was like, oh, if I had the time I would have done it. I did not end up having the time because it was on the last day. I feel really bad about that, but players turn to content creators and guides to try and help them if they can't figure it out, and I think this is due to a lack of information available in the game or other sources that average players need to be able to understand the game. And I'll be honest with you, I've done this. Like, I've turned to guides when I can't figure it out. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the fact that so many players struggle and feel like they're unable to just participate without doing that is really hard and really concerning from a game design standpoint. So I asked the players about this as well. What do we think about that? One person said, I watch videos and talk in the Discord to figure fights out. They're not as complex as they used to be, and now we have better tools for them, which is also fine. I like that. So you think it's not that complicated, but you are still relying on some outside help, so that's okay. One person says, I watch Speedy and Sinzar videos for Trials and Clash of Wills. They're really helpful. I agree. I think that by and large, those videos are really helpful, but they do sometimes, if you go into it knowing that, these are going to be high-powered clears, are going to have lots of gear, especially for Clash of Wills, it's going to really push the limits of what you have. That's okay. I watch videos because it's not possible, at least for me, to understand anything that happens. So it's the only way to actually have a chance to do it after I watch these videos, at least to get an idea. That's what I'm talking about. People just like saying, I can't figure it out on my own. I love this one. I always try using the news and data from the game until I lose 20 times and want to throw my phone. At that point, I usually check out some guides on YouTube if I have time. And when I don't have time, the events just pass me by. Rip. So it's so hard that even somebody who like has checked the game, have watched YouTube, if they can't figure it out and they don't have time to do it, they just don't play. I'm sure that's what the developers want, right? I don't have any idea what I'm doing in this game. Lol, I've been too lazy to read the skills and I just put some units to do Cal. I'm always stuck at level 90 and never progress. I played the game less than an hour a day, so events always pass me by. Okay. You're not really investing in trying to understand, but that's okay. You know, if you want to play that way, you play that way. But if I'm always stuck at level 90 and never progress. Okay. I try to figure it out first and then only rely on guides if I fail. But I'm only needing to clear level 99 here. I like that attitude a lot. Like if I'm not really pushing that hard to get past, past level 99 and just trying to get all the levels cleared, then watching a video to just to get it done, awesome. You know, if you're not really working to try and understand the fight and just want to get it done in a few turns and whatever, that works. So what do I think? I prefer when I'm creating content so far. I've been doing this for almost a year. I prefer to try and teach the game rather than just display the game. So I've got 2 series of videos where I try to talk about mechanics or strategies that provide information rather than simply make a guide. And any videos that I've done that are clears for Cal, which are easily my most popular videos, are not like designed to brag about it because I'm not showing rank 1. I'm there to like teach my process and talk about how I've decided what happens next, what my rotation is, why I'm doing what I'm doing, talk about mechanics, how it influences your build and your strategy. But that's because it really bugs me when I can't find that. Like if I can't find that in a guide or a how-to, and that really bugs me because I'm wanting to learn, then that's kind of what's prompting me to try and like help people learn, because I know I'm not the only one out there. When I try to create that, it's because I can't have what I want. And so I try to help people do what I struggle with. But here's the thing. I think it's really unfortunate that we have to rely on that. I think it's a shame that we can't look and see what the boss's skills do in the game. We have to look outside or even, engage in data mining to see what this boss does, to find out that a boss has a 270% fire imperil for some reason. I wish that if a boss used a skill, we got some way to figure out what it was doing, because sometimes it happens so fast that it kills you and then you can't look at the debuffs because you died before you could even look at it. And it's just, it happens so fast that you even the highest trained eye cannot see it. So because of that, until we get a better system, awesome. People make those guides. I just try to do mine from a specific way. I try to teach rather than just like give a copyable solution. Copyable solution, I think is boring to me. It's boring to me and I don't want that. So I just want to I would rather learn from something and teach something rather than just demonstrate it. But that's just me. I don't think content creators should stop, Cool. So let's talk about this last section here. If you could change Dark Visions or Clash of Wills as well, as I was talking about both in my discussion, what would you change? And I got some interesting responses, I feel like. So one, overall, I have nothing to complain about Cal because it has unique mechanisms. Awesome. Overall, I'm really happy with Clash of Wills. Awesome. Hard to say. My first thought is everything. All in all, it's an event used so whales can show off their new purchases. No real challenge when the only way to clear it is to have those 2 or 3 specific units and equipment. I can't really disagree with that. I think it's fun, but I think having those units to use in a relevant piece of content is fun. But I agree, it does make it really difficult and not exciting if you need 2 or 3 specific units and don't have them. Maybe add an option for decreasing boss stats while still being able to increase its level without influencing its score for those who fail many times. I don't know how that would work, but it's an interesting idea. So here's what I think. What would I change? Since I think Clash of Wills is the most engaging content we get in global, I don't know if I would change a lot, but I do have some suggestions and some ideas of what I would love to see change. But I don't want to change too much because it is monthly trial level difficulty bosses with free rewards. It's great event themed units. They have a lot of power outside of Clash of Wills. There's awesome gear to craft, legitimate challenges. It's a fun event, so I don't want to change too much. But if I could change a few things, here's a couple things I would change. Number one, I wish that Clash of Wills did not cost orbs. I wish it used energy. So Dark Visions already has this, and at the current, we have no way to refill our orbs for Clash of Wills other than spending lapis or ranking up. And so we either need refill potions for it, like we have for raids, or our energy, or just to be able to use energy refills instead. That would be awesome. It would also be awesome. It would also be really, really awesome if when you have not beaten a level yet. So like if I haven't beaten level 91 and I die on level 91, that it just didn't cost me an orb. That would be really cool too. I would love to see the maximum score locked behind EX levels 14 instead of 16. Basically, the event requires you to have 4 EX plus 3 units and 2 EX2 units, or, maybe a little bit different. Sorry, I'm going to cough. So if you want to use the event unit in the event, the current unit in the event, you have to pull multiple copies or otherwise get them to EX plus 2 during that event or higher. And without that, you're forced out of the hope of a max score, or using different units, which I don't think is a lot of fun. I think lowering it to 14 allows for more flexibility while still incentivizing pulling. We already talked about this. Failed attempts need to not cost an orb. If the boss's AI is as unpredictable as it is for Aldiva and Kairos, then trial and error is not going to be rewarded, because you go and, this time I got hit with one chromatic wave. Okay, I won that time, so it must be really, really good. Next time I get hit with 6 chromatic waves and I die. That's not. It's fair, I guess. The boss can be random, but for it to be that random and still punish you for trying something, I think it's not engaging for players. Wasting 10 orbs because you can't tell what the boss is killing you with is also turning off players and keeping them from even participating, because they're just bored with it and done with it and it's not interesting. I would love for them to leave room for older units to shine, specifically ones we can get for free or just by virtue of having played for a while. What I'm talking about is Neovision's Awakening units. And I think that, when they first announced Clash of Wills, they were designing it supposedly to give veteran players a way to challenge themselves with like new game modes and like pushing the modifiers as hard as you can. But I think what has ended up happening is that it instead become an event where you just have to buy, the highest maximum EX levels for your units as possible just to participate and get a high score, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I've pulled on the last handful of Clash of Wills units. I didn't pull for Esther, but I pulled for Chow, I pulled for Tiana, I pulled for Roberta, I pulled for Lara Croft, I didn't pull for Carton. And so I've pulled for them and I've enjoyed having them, but I also wish that I could use some old NVAs sometimes and kind of mix and match. What was fun about my Osa clear and getting rank 1 with it was I had Sky EX2, and then it was okay, well, what am I going to use to kind of buff her up and then support her? And I was able to pull out Sieghard at EX plus 3 and Lotus Mage Fina at EX plus 3 to try and just provide some support for her and get the damage in. And it was fun to be able to pull those old units. And so I think it would be really cool to be able to do that. But here's the problem. When Clash of Wills started, we only had 2 or 3 morale-based units anyway. You only had Louise and Ling and Elena. And then in the next one you had Sky, and then in the next one you had Kresnik and Bulwark. So as the roster gets bigger and bigger, I just see this problem getting worse and worse. And that's where I think, the comment that we got earlier that was season 1 was great and now it's just I think that's where it's coming from, is that it's just we're just getting more and more units that either are only going to be usable for one event or are just like, I don't know, not that thrilling or not that exciting, or the bosses are just really easy because like people who pull every unit can just clear it and get rank 1. Like I just wish it was a little bit different. There it is. I think that it's gotten away from like rewarding you for having a creative list of like available units to just having a small bunch of like specific units. So like Aldaba, for example, despite my frustrations, a really good example of what I'm talking about. General Celeste, right? It was is a really great unit that helped everybody with rank 1. Almost every rank 1 clear had her in it, and it's a really big shame that I didn't have her in my list at all. I don't even have one copy of her. What was annoying about that is that when Aldaba came out, they put out a special banner where you could just get her, which I feel like was really sneaky. But, you know, it was convenient because, oh, look at this really helpful unit that's going to be right there. And I realized that I just said not too long ago it'd be really awesome to be able to like target and pinpoint and pull the unit you need for this clear. But they've only done this one time. It seems a little weird that they would do that for this boss, knowing how absurd its AI is. Like I feel like it was a little sneaky. Anyway, my point is, we're not rewarded for having a big collection of possible units. We're rewarded for having a very specific, tight subset of units. In this case, you know, General Celeste was the unit. And if you didn't have her, you probably weren't turning on the attack and defense the attack and magic modifier for the boss. That said, with all the changes and the criticism that I have, I think it's exciting, challenging, interesting, and rewarding, and I'm glad we have access to it. I really look forward to like seeing what the new units are and how the bosses are going to be and like what they're going to do. But I'd still love for there to be changes, and I don't think I know I'm not alone. I think that players who have better access to high EX levels, they have the most fun. If you can call just like copying a clear fun. I don't think it's particularly fun, but there it is. You know, but I think having a wide selection does allow you to be creative as long as it's a wide selection of the right units. You know, me having a bunch of NVAs at EX+3 does not help me in Clash of Wills most of the time because they don't have morale skills. They don't have high modifiers on their abilities. They don't just do what they need to do compared to the Clash of Wills unit, and that's fair. It's designed to get you to pull for the fun units, and I prefer to pull for the Clash of Wills units anyway, so it works out. But with the difficulty being what it is, I mean, hearing that players are just quitting because it's not making sense, or quitting because it's random, or quitting because it's too hard, or quitting because they can't find out what the boss is doing and they don't understand, like I think that's not good. That I think encourages you to just learn one specific strategy that somebody does and copy it instead of understanding the game, understanding how to play, understanding what the boss is doing, actually playing with the mechanics. And instead I'm just like letting somebody else play for me, and I'm just hoping that I have the same units as them. Which is really the goal of a lot of my content, is to help people learn what the mechanics are of the game, what the mechanics are of a fight, what the mechanics are of like, here's how you do this and that, and especially newer players, because I feel like it's a resource that does not really exist, and so I try really hard to make it because it's what I want for myself, and so I ended up, you know, investing a lot of time trying to understand things, and then I decided, well, I'm going to make sure that other people know how to do this too. Yeah. I'm still looking forward to Clash of Wills. I'm looking forward to the next one, because outside of Clash of Wills, all we really get is Dark Visions, which is not exciting to me at all. Because at that point, I'm literally just battling somebody else's wallet. The boss is not hard. I'm just going up against, you know, whether or not somebody has more copies of Sky's STMR than me. And that's not exciting, because I've only ever gotten a couple copies of Sky, and even though mine's at EX+3, I don't have very many copies. And I also realized I only got a chance to talk to a couple people about this stuff when it comes to Clash of Wills. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put all the same questions that I asked everybody in the Facebook group in the comments, and I'd love to hear your responses as well. Like I would love to come back and see like really long comments, you know, just so we can see what other people think, because I know I'm not alone. And I want to know what the community thinks, and I know that I'm probably not going to change anything with this, but I think Clash of Wills is really cool, and I'd like to see it be even better. So I know this is a long video. if you're interested in this kind of discussion, I've done a handful of discussion type videos in the past, and if you're interested in it, let me know. If you're not interested in it, if you think this is like pointless and stupid, let me know too. I'm open to that feedback, but I really appreciate you sticking with me. I know it was a long video, and if you'd like to see more discussions of this nature, and you let me know that, the easiest way to see them in the future is just to subscribe. If you're interested in the other stuff I do, like the new content, the new player guides, and clears and stuff like that, feel free to subscribe for that too, just because I do try and post them relatively regularly as I have them, just to try and teach the game, try and teach what I've come to really appreciate and where I spend a lot of my free time. So yeah, there's that. Thanks for hanging in there, and hope you have a good night or a good day or whatever time it is where you are watching this. So thanks for listening.